All right, welcome back. The funeral of Pope Francis, we're edging closer to that official funeral procession that's set to take place around 10 a.m. Thank you very much for being part of this special broadcast, the world watching. Hundreds of thousands, of course, coming out in their numbers to the Vatican. They're just outside St. Peter's Square, they're at the Basilica in St. Peter's Square to bid adieu. Of course, his body has been lying in state for the past 3 days. We also know that that's where the public could go and pay their last respects. But this service now that's set to take place at 10 a.m., it's mostly going to be conducted in Latin, but there is an official procession and protocol that will be observed. It's going to be led by the Dean of the College of Cardinals, Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re. And that procession begins as follows. So the priest will walk in carrying the cross. That's going to be followed by the coffin where the body of the late Pope Francis, of course, has been lying, and then he'll be followed by an ordained clergy. Now, the Swiss Guards, they will also continue to kneel for the consecration of the host. That's once they're inside the Basilica of St. Peter's, where the blessing of the bread and wine is also set to take place. A sermon is going to follow thereafter, where they'll reflect on the life and times, and then his body, of course, will be taken to the Basilica of St. Mary Major, where that will serve as his final resting place. So as we continue with our rolling coverage, your SABC News reporter now, Ishan Garg, he's standing by us from India, perhaps to give us an update on how that country really is paying tribute to the Pope today. Ishan, good morning, and thank you for joining us at this hour. We're obviously just looking at the relationship between India and the Vatican. Tell us a little bit more about that visit that almost happened and now obviously can never happen. How is India paying tribute to the late Pope today?
Well, one of the biggest sort of sorrows of the Christian Catholic community in India is the fact that Pope's visit could never actually happen. There are instances of at least on 2 occasions a visit was being organized from both the Vatican and New Delhi's side, once in 2017 and once again in 2021 when Prime Minister Narendra Modi had met the late Pope. And on both occasions there was this great expectation that Pope Francis would come to India and meet his hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of followers across this country. But those 2 visits could never materialize. We never got an official response as to what happened, but reports have been suggesting that there were some scheduling conflicts due to which the Pope couldn't visit India. One of the members of the Catholic Church here, who's very senior up in the organization, said that Pope Francis spoke to him personally and said that it remained one of his big items on his to-do list was to visit India, because of course he did visit the neighboring countries, especially Bangladesh, which is India's neighbor on the eastern side. That visit could never materialize, but India has sent its president, the head of the state, and also a senior minister to the Pope's funeral in the Vatican. They will be representing the Indian side. India, of course, has declared 26th of April, which is Saturday, as a day of mourning for the late Pope. Flag will be flying at half-mast across the country, and that's one of the official ways in which India is paying tribute to the late Pope.
Ishan, and perhaps, as India continues to pay respects, talk to us about who's going to be in attendance at the funeral that's obviously taking place in Rome today. But even just the next steps, the 4 cardinals from India that may play a major role in the election of the new Pope. How are those dynamics also faring as we speak?
Well, there has been a big outpouring of grief, certainly because of the Pope's death, but there is also a sense that India's Christian community is being represented in the Vatican through these 4 Indian cardinals. And what shows here, and what many Christians in the country feel, is that Pope Francis really acted as the leader who was very inclusive in nature. Not only did he elevate Indian bishops to the position of sainthood, he also canonized Mother Teresa, who was involved in charitable work in India from the 1930s through the 1980s and 90s, and that was one of the ways in which the Indian state, the Indian society, was brought closer to the Vatican. India is being represented in Rome by the President of the country, Draupadi Murmu, and at the same time, we have seen in the past week several meetings being organized by the Catholic Church here, where people are coming in, pouring in to pay their tribute to the late Pope. They're also holding memorial services, and essentially there are people who say that though they are sad about the demise of the Pope, what they want to take this opportunity, the funeral, is to celebrate the life of the great leader.
Ishan Garg, thank you for that update. SABC News reporter Ishan Garg, of course, from India, just telling us about how the country is paying tribute to the Pope. We know that there, were days declared as a state of mourning observed there in India. Also, the Pope on record, just having echoed his greatest respect for India as well.